Good morning and welcome to another episode of Bold Business. I'm David Grasso from Gen FKD, a nonprofit dedicated to helping young people get the skills they need to succeed. This morning, I'm joined by a special guest and our co-host for the day, Bobbi Rebell. How are you, Bobbi?
Nice to see you, David.
Well, Bobbi and I are
way
friends
back.
in real life,
Yes.
actually. She's a finance expert and author of How to Be a Financial Grown-Up.
Thank you, David. It's so great to be here.
So, a little bird told me you recently passed a very important exam.
Yes, I took the Certified Financial Planner exam. It was so hard, David. We were just talking about it. I studied full-time for several months. This was really important to me because we all need to know so much about what's going on with our financial lives these days. It's getting more and more complicated. And, you know, the days of kind of being in a job, this is so inconceivable, but back in the old days, for baby boomers, they would be in jobs for like their whole life. And when they were done, they would get something called a pension. And then, basically, until they died, they got money it was like a paycheck. Like every 2 weeks, they would get money that would come to them just because they had shown up at this job for 30 years. And then we had the Gen Xers like me, where there were 401ks.
You're like a zennial, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a borderline millennial.
Exactly. And we would get a 401k where at least someone at the company was telling you to save money. And now, you know, with this gig economy and millennials, it's just all on you.
And speaking of the gig economy, Bobbi, you're part of it.
I am part of it, which is so awesome.
So tell us all about that. How does that work? How the heck do you get healthcare and a 401k and all that happy stuff?
Well, healthcare, you got to marry into these days. I mean, seriously, I'm just being honest. My husband has healthcare. You know what I mean? You got to love someone with healthcare. That's what you got to do. That's seriously with what's going on with, we don't know what it is. It's Obamacare, it's Trump care. We don't even know. Side hustle is so important. When I was full-time at Reuters, this was my side hustle. Financial Grown-Up was and we met when that was going on.
So tell us a little bit about
it was really important.
Financial Grown-Up. So you wrote a book?
So I wrote a book, How to Be a Financial Grown-Up, and from that book, there have been a lot of opportunities to come out and talk to people and teach people about financial literacy and what they need to be doing, because like I said, we all kind of need to be the CFO of our own family, of our own lives. You got to take control these days because no one's going to hold your hand like they used to back in the old days.
Here, honey, here's a pension.
We're holding hands.
Here, honey, here's a pension. Here's a very generous health insurance policy that doesn't exist anymore.
Not happening, exactly. So, you know, we got to get on it.
So I mean, you've always been a finance expert, but now you know a lot more because of your exam, because you wrote the book. What type of credibility does that buy you in the community?
Well, hopefully a lot. I mean, I think it's really important because so much information is out there and it's constantly changing. I mean, just look at the headlines this week. We don't know what is happening with our taxes. We don't know what is happening with our health care and our health insurance. I mean, it's a minefield out there. They could even mess with the 401ks. We don't even know. That's out there. They're talking about changes.
State and local tax deductions.
State and local tax, which
really
matters a lot here in New York City. Yeah, that's a big thing. Even property taxes. So if you're young and you're starting out your family and you're looking at houses and you think you can deduct that property tax that you're going to pay for that new house, that may go away or at least be limited depending on what passes. These are big things that can really affect what you can afford and what you should afford. So, yeah. There's a lot going on.
Well, anyway, speaking of headlines, let's move into headlines. Our first headline comes from the Wall Street Journal and is about why immigrants make great entrepreneurs. According to a report from the Partnership for a New American Economy, more than 40% of Fortune 500 firms had at least one founder who either immigrated to the United States or was the child of immigrants.
This is a really interesting article. The author points out that immigrants have been through a lot of hardships, so a business setback it's really nothing in their world. He believes immigrants not only have the qualities that help any entrepreneur to succeed, including aggressiveness, creative thinking, but they also get a big boost because many of the skills they picked up coping with the new world are transferable to the entrepreneurial world. So, David, what do you think?
Well, my mom's an immigrant. We all descend from immigrants. My
great-grandfather was an immigrant, but...
Yeah, well, you know, I think immigrants don't have it easy.
They don't. But they work so hard. That's the thing. They just have a work ethic because they don't have a choice. I mean, and no obstacle really seems that big because they got here. And it is not easy to get here these days.
No, and entrepreneurship, everyone talks about the drunken walk of entrepreneurship or the roller coaster, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of pronounced highs and lows. And you don't get things like a 401k or healthcare, et cetera, built in.
No.
And, you know, immigrants really don't take anything for granted.
No.
Because they had to leave their native lands. A lot of times English is not their native language, and they've had to tough it out. It's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy, and I think that they appreciate it, and they also are so focused and determined because they came here in many cases, and we're not talking about refugees. We're talking about, in this article, they talk about deliberate immigrants that have come here for a better economic life for themselves and for their family. And they really have a plan, and they are not going to give up. And that determination can really carry you far. I mean, I think that willfulness is so important. And they also, by the way, another interesting thing in the article, they talk about the social networks among the immigrants.
Of course.
And how they bring each other up.
They help each other.
Yeah, they help each other. And maybe that's something that when you're here for a few generations, maybe gets a little more casual. People kind of take it for granted. They feel a little more entitled. When you come here and you're part of a cultural, social network, they often lift each other up. You often see groups of immigrants in the same business, and that's because they're helping each other. And it works. It really does.
Well, you've helped me a lot, Bobbi, and you're not an immigrant, so here we go. Our next headline is from CableTV.com and is about the biggest bank accounts of the Victoria's Secret runway. Don't forget the show is tonight.
All right, so looking at 2017 earnings, the top 3 highest paid models on the Victoria's Secret runway were Adrienne Lima, who made, oh my gosh, more than $10 million in 2017. She narrowly out-earned Karlie Kloss, who made $10 million that same year. Coming in at number 3, how do you pronounce this, Candace?
Swanepoel. I'm terrible at this.
Okay, she made a mere $7 million in 2017.
This year's Victoria's Secret show will be held in Shanghai, China, and this year's highest paid models would have included several stars who could not attend for several reasons. For instance, Gigi Hadid and Katy Perry were set to appear in the show, but they were barred from entering the country when the Chinese government refused to grant them visas. Can you believe that?
I do believe it. They're really tough over there. I have never been to China. But okay, this is interesting. So if Kendall Jenner would have appeared in this year's show, she would have been the top earner on the runway. No real surprise there. But she's a businesswoman. She signed with another lingerie company, and that barred her from appearing with Victoria's Secret. I wonder what that check was. That might have been a really big check.
A lot more than these models, probably.
So what do you think?
You know, these are big numbers.
These are really big numbers.
I mean, these are beautiful women, though. They are. I mean, there's a lot of Photoshop or retouching going on when we see them in the catalogs, but when we see them on the runway, we're seeing them in real life.
Beautiful, and they do work hard. So, but yeah.
For years, the highest paid model was Giselle. You know, and Giselle is still beautiful, has a beautiful family.
And to their credit, a lot of, we don't know, this generation is still younger, but a lot of the older models have really done well in businesses of their own. I mean, look at Kathy Ireland. She's got an amazing business. Cindy Crawford. Elle Macpherson, who was a very popular Victoria's Secret model. She has a whole lingerie line, I think.
You know,
so, yeah.
I mean,
they do well.
What's hilarious about the Victoria's Secret show is a lot of my family lives in Cuba, and, you know, they have a media block out over there. And when I got there, one of my cousins was like, oh, my God, did you see this year's Victoria's Secret show? It was so nice. I'm like,
get that. Somehow they get that through.
Were you watching
They find a way to get the shows that they need to see. That's what happens.
She was like, oh, Adam Levine's wife is so beautiful, that Namibian lady. She is very pretty.
Yes.
And I'm sure she makes a lot of money.
They all do.
And I'm sure she has great health care because she married Adam Levine of Maroon 5.
But he's kind of in the gig economy. I mean, does Maroon 5, they're not a corporation. Is he on Obamacare? Right? We don't know.
I think we're all on Obamacare at this point.
No, I'm on my husband's insurance.
Well, I'm on Obamacare. I don't have a husband or wife to give me health insurance.
While that still exists, who knows what will be? We really don't know. It's going to be Trump care
soon. Cross your
soon.
fingers. Trump care, Obamacare, health care. Crazy expensive either way.
Yes, but still go get your checkups.
So anyway, we have a star lineup of guests today. Our first guest is Melonie Echevarria. She's the manager of new business at Being Latino, a top U.S. Hispanic social media marketing company.
She is responsible for overseeing the execution of all branded partnerships and influencer executions, as well as fostering new business opportunities for the company. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
We want to hear about your career journey, Melonie.
Yeah, absolutely. So as mentioned, I work at Being Latino. Being Latino is a social media marketing company, and we work with tons of different brands to put together custom branded content for whatever initiative that they are looking to execute at the time. So I kind of just started off at the company as an intern doing just community management. We have a series of pages where we kind of just put out content that's relatable to the Latino consumer. It started off like that, just kind of curating content, creating content, and putting it out there. And then later moved on to the business side and being able to work with different clients to put together content that makes sense for them and makes sense for our audience as well. So it's very exciting.
You guys have a huge following, though. How did you build that following? And more importantly, how do you maintain that following?
Yeah, it's huge. We have a network of pages. It's not just the Being Latino page. We have a bunch of other different
What are they?
networks
Can you
under
list
our
them?
pages. Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
too many to list, but go.
We have, there are a
so
bunch
many.
of them.
It was
We
really
have
impressive.
Latina Things, we have Latino Pride, we have Being Puerto Rican, we have a bachata page, we have a bunch of other pages that just don't come to mind at the time, but just to give you an idea of what the range is, we have something called Being Chicano, which is more catered to the Mexican community. So we're able to kind of dig into those different niche communities within the Latino community even more with those pages. And it all started with our founder, Lance Rios, creating the Being Latino page in 2009, seeing that there was a gap in the space where people just needed content that was more catered to them and to that Latino community. And from there, we kind of just started building pages that were more and more catered to different communities within that larger community. And to maintain it, it's a lot of just being really in touch with who the community is, what they're talking about, what they relate to, kind of playing off of their childhood and going off of nostalgia and just personal experiences and things like that is what really keeps the community alive and going on a regular basis.
Can you give us an example of, a project that really worked? In other words, a client project that worked to kind of reach this community?
Yeah, we did something not too long ago. This was last year, and we're actually working with them again with Bud Light Chelada. And it's a canned michelada product, and it's very popular within
You guys,
the Mexican community.
michelada is a mix between beer,
Yes.
lime juice, and sometimes
I was just playing along. I didn't
picante,
know that, but I was
spicy.
nodding and pretending I knew.
And it all comes pre-packed, huh?
Yeah, so it
Okay.
comes pre-packed, and they said this is perfect for your audience. We wanna do something with them. So we actually put together a video with an influencer where he was sitting down drinking the drink, and a girl came up to him, and he didn't speak Spanish. He only spoke English, and she only spoke Spanish. And the way that he was able to connect with her was through the product, and people love that. It got millions of views on its own, and the video really took off, and it was something that the client was obviously like really happy about.
How do you choose influencers? Because there's so much controversy about the validity of all the followers that people have. Sometimes they have big numbers. Are they real? Are they not? And maybe sometimes now there's a movement towards these micro-influencers.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it really depends on what the brand is looking to achieve. At the end of the day, some brands would rather have someone who's really big and just go with one person. Some of them decide that they want a bunch of smaller micro influencers. So it really depends on what you're looking for. But in terms of choosing the influencer, it really goes back to their personality, their engagement, and how that connects with the brand and their messaging. We wouldn't want to put someone who is a beauty influencer to do something that is auto-related because it's not necessarily what their specialty is, right? So it's all about being able to find things that are relevant to each other.
So all these jobs in the digital world, like yourself, let's say you are someone who aspires to work in the digital world and in your space. What's your advice?
I think the biggest thing is to constantly be aware of what's going on and to play in the space. It's really easy to say, you know, that you have a Facebook page or you have an Instagram page, but to really be active and see who the key players are within those spaces and who's doing it right and what's out there and how the platforms are changing and keeping up with the trades and things like that are all very, very important. And being able to kind of establish a career and have it be something more than just like a hobby or something that you do on your spare time.
So how do you make it sustainable?
Well, personally,
Well, personally, and then give us advice for other people.
yeah, I think that in order to make it sustainable, it's all about being consistent. When it comes to what you put out there, I think it's really important, again, to just stay current on what's relevant. Platforms change every single day. So really understanding, you know, what is Facebook doing to change their platform at this point in time? And
Oh, that's like the scuttlebutt.
yeah, every day is different.
It's like, oh, they changed their algorithm. Sorry, your
Right.
following is kaput.
Yeah, so it's really important to kind of just stay up to date on those things, and that's how you make it sustainable, is figuring out what's happening in the now and going with the flow of things as it's happening, because the space is changing every single day. And I mean, in the past few months alone, we've seen so many different changes with platforms, with how people interact with content and things like that, that, you know, just being able to be privy to those kinds of details is what helps you stay afloat.
So what do you see in the future then? What, if you can kind of spot the next micro trend coming up, what are we going to see going into 2018? Yes, take out your crystal ball for us and just predict the whole future, Melonie.
That's an interesting question. I think that moving into 2018, we're probably going to see a lot more longer form content.
Really?
Just because
I always hear about short attention spans.
you know, it's interesting because at this point in time, Facebook is moving more towards that longer form content. And I'm talking about probably in that 3-minute range, not 20 plus.
Okay, so now we're 3 minutes is now
That's longer form as compared to the 15 seconds and 30 seconds that we were used to.
You're talking about video?
Okay.
Yeah, on video.
Okay.
You know, because we were used to 15 and 30 seconds on Instagram, then they kind of went up to 1 minute, and now we're used to seeing 1 minute. But if that's on Instagram, but if you look at Facebook, for example, things are kind of shifting where the length of content that is more favorable is in that 2 to 3 minute range. So I think that we're slowly going to start seeing that, and I think that over time, people will probably start using those different platforms more and more as a source of video, and maybe even like moving away from TV. I see it happening slowly but surely with myself. I don't watch TV at all. All of my content is consumed on social, and I think that a lot of people in that millennial age range, it's the same case for them.
Yeah.
So as these changes occur, it unnerves a lot of people because whole businesses depend on the Facebook algorithm, aka us. You know, we've seen our viewership go up and down. How do you plan for that? How do you manage that? It's really difficult. I know we have our challenges here.
It's like
at
you're
Bull
playing
TV.
defense all the time.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% playing defense all the time because what happens is that you'll have a plan set in place, and then, you know, over time you'll end up having to change it from one day to the next. But again, as far as planning for it, it's all about being on your toes and knowing what is happening. So, you know, you have your planning, this is what's working for now, but as you see things starting to change, you have to be able to identify why they're changing and adjust according to what those factors are.
Well, any advice before you go? We always ask everyone. I already asked you an advice question, but before we leave you, do you have any advice for millennials in the digital world besides keeping up? Keeping up with the Kardashians or the trends, or maybe it's the same thing?
Definitely keep up. I think always, you know, be open to new experiences. Keep an open mind, and explore what's out there.
Well, anyway, Melonie
Thank you.
Echevarria from Being Latino, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you.
Our next guest is part of our Bookstr segment. Bookstr's
Yay,
a
Bookstr.
website. Yay, Bookstr!
We love Bookstr.
Bookstr is a website for book lovers and much more. I don't even need to, I already have that memorized since they're on here so often. Our featured author today is Joshua David Stein. Joshua is the author of What's Cooking, a whimsical read-along of delicious answers to ridiculous questions about what can and cannot be done in the kitchen.
All right, Joshua is also the editor-at-large for Fatherly, a website for fathers and a parenting resource for all. He is joined by the fabulous Sarah Hill, CEO of Bookstr. Good morning.
Hey.
All right, tell us what's cooking.
Well, What's Cooking is my latest book.
I love these.
And this is called Can I Eat
Stealing
That?
these, by the way, and bringing them home.
We'll gift them to you. You can't
My
steal
Can I
something
Eat
we
That?
give
Thank
you.
you.
My Can I Eat That book would be like an encyclopedia.
I
'cause
know.
I'm allergic to everything.
So your can't
eat that,
I can't
yeah.
eat that would be really long.
Are you really?
Yeah.
These are kids' books. Basically, I am in my career. I've been a food writer for a long time, and I've really cared about food. I have two sons, Achilles and Augie, and my older son, Achilles, didn't eat that much. So whenever we were at the table, we'd always be fighting about food.
Right.
And I wanted to create a book, an experience for us just to talk about food. I wasn't trying to get him to eat anything.
Oh, you were. You were trying to.
Kind of, but like real soft. It was like real psyops. And so that was the first book. And then as he's gotten older, he's come out of his shell a little bit. He's 5.
Okay.
So now he helps with mise en place, like the preparation, and he bakes a little. And so it was time to kind of go one level higher of not just what can I eat, but how do you make the food you eat. But it's also a book of like wordplay and logic games and just funny stuff.
It's very whimsical and very beautiful. The pages are gorgeous.
Yeah.
So were they like the test readers when you were writing this, the boys?
Actually, Can I Eat That came out of an actual conversation with Achilles. And then after that came out, he was like, you should do a sequel. And I was like, oh yeah, what should it be called? He's like, Can I Heat That? I was like, you really are your father's son, yeah.
What was the conversation? That inspired the books?
This one, Can I Eat That started after I stepped on a sea urchin when I was in Hawaii,
As we all do.
as one does.
As one does.
And
You stepped on a sea
water
urchin.
socks. We could have made a book about water socks, but I feel
I
like
grew up in Florida. That's a
yeah.
given.
Okay.
And then we started talking about uni, which is sea urchin, the coral inside, about whether you can eat uni, and you can.
Learning so much today.
Is it good?
Yeah, you guys have never had it?
I have never had that.
Oh yeah, inside
that's where we're
uni.
going after the
Actually,
show
look,
today.
Okay,
I've seen
let's just do
people
it
eat
real quick.
raw.
Yes, you're going to read an excerpt.
Yeah.
Can I eat an orange, an olive, a sea urchin? Yes, you can eat all three. A sea urchin is called uni in Japanese. Inside the uni are bright orange strips of meat called coral. You can serve the coral on rice. Uni donbori.
Yum.
So there
I'll
you
try
have
it.
it.
Still don't know if I want to eat uni.
I would eat it.
You should eat
No,
uni.
I don't know about that.
It seems crazy that you haven't, and you should.
So what was the publishing process like for you? For your first book, were you like, oh, I'm going to just like go out there and do this and find an illustrator? Or like, how did you?
Yeah, so
wrangle
I'd previously done a cookbook. Actually, I came out with a cookbook the same year as that with Phaidon,
Okay.
which is a architecture and food publisher. Very like high quality artistic books.
Beautiful books. They're known for like their gorgeous books.
And they were, so I know the publisher, and then they were just starting their kids imprint, their kids line. So I had lunch with this woman, Cecily, who's amazing, and Cecily, usually how it works, or how it worked in our case, is they introduced me to the illustrator. They presented three, and they were like, which one do you think resonates?
You got to choose.
I got to choose.
Nice.
Yes.
So besides these lovely, colorful books, which I'm super colorblind and I can see those colors, so
Yes.
they're very bright. You're also
You're colorblind, allergic to men.
Yeah, I'm just
Let's get into
High
it. Yeah.
maintenance kind of person.
Hey, I'm a special guy.
Yeah.
I'm also ambidextrous, but that's besides the point.
Yeah.
You're also the editor at large for Fatherly.
Yeah,
Which
that's
is
true.
a very large website with a very large following, and it's not just for fathers, right?
No, it's not. It's for all parents. Yeah. I'd written about food for so long in my life, and then I had kids. And when you write about food, you're out of the house all the time, and you can't be around that much. And I wanted to write about something that is true to me now as a dad. Fatherly is a great opportunity because what I found was so much of writing about fatherhood was either like overly precious, right, where you felt like you couldn't partake because your life isn't perfect, or it was kind of that, oh, having kids is a drag kind of like mentality. And neither one of those has been my experience. It's really, I think for a lot of dads, you're excited to be a dad, you're imperfect, and you're trying to do a good job. And that's really what and you struggle a little, and that's really what we're trying to speak to. My favorite thing that I get to do is I'm the host of the Fatherly podcast, which is on iHeartRadio. And I get to talk to really interesting dads every week about their struggles and their triumphs and their joys. And it's been really interesting to talk to really professionally successful fathers, because you understand they struggle with the same stuff any dad struggles with anger, not being around enough, discipline, not discipline.
Have the expectations changed, though? I think for this generation, especially millennial dads, the expectations are very different from previous generations.
Yeah, for sure.
There's
We've
a lot of
seen
pressure
that.
on.
There's a lot of pressure, and there's also a lot of, I would say it feels silly to say, but it feels like liberated in the sense that you can be really involved as a dad. And like, I'm a great example. I work from home. I pick my kids up from school. I drop them off, not this morning, but usually. And I'm fully present in their lives, and I don't feel any shame about you have a very lovely blazer, but I feel no shame about not owning any blazers and not going to any offices. I'm just a guy. Sometimes I'm in front of a computer. Sometimes I'm at the playground.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really inspiring. Have you found that, do you think that men will start kind of competing, because part of your mission statement is like, oh, we want it to be like sports or comedy to men. Do you think men will like start competing on like being the great dad, and not like the archetypal great dad, but like just being present and there and having conversations? And
what I would hope is that fathers become more present and have more conversations, but I would not like to see it take on the tinge of competition and aggression. But I do think that being able to have conversations, being able to provide content which isn't idealized, we try really hard not to create this sort of like perfect dad that you'll never live up to. Because I feel like that's actually pretty alienating for a lot of dads, because we're not that. I'm not that.
No one's that.
No one's that, right. And by providing this space to just do a good job, mess up, keep on at it, you know? I feel like a lot of dads and a lot of people in general feel really discouraged when they don't live up to this ideal, and then it's easy to give up, because hanging out in that gray zone where you're not terrible and you're not great, that's tough, but it's human.
yeah, and at least we're having the conversation now. I think, 20, 30 years ago, I don't know if everyone was, and if anyone was talking about that for guys.
Yeah, I think, so I do this thing called the Fatherly Questionnaire, where I ask all the dads that come through the podcast or not 20 questions. And one of the questions are, describe yourself as a father in 3 words. And then the other question right after that is, describe your father as a father in 3 words. And it's really interesting to see how that breaks down, because a lot of times it's exact opposites.
It's a very different generational change, I think, even looking at how my father was and how my husband is as a father.
Yeah.
It's very different, and I think it's really wonderful that fathers can be so much more hands-on, and it's so much more supported in society these days.
Yeah, it's maybe because the guys on the podcast are really successful, which is why they're on the why we're talking to them.
Kind of self-fulfilling, but you don't tend to invite the losers on.
Yeah. Although I would also love, but honestly, I would love to invite not losers, but people who are just,
Maybe not that into
Everyday people.
everyday people. Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things is a lot of them talk, when you say describe your father in 3 words, they talk about their fathers being frustrated professionally or without direction. And it's been interesting to see that they've achieved greatness either because their dad kind of pushed them because they felt stymied, or as a, I never want to be that guy, and then as a rebellion. So it's been really interesting to see these nuances.
I see another book coming out of this.
I
see a book coming out of all
my
these
dad.
interviews.
for sure.
Daddy
Yes.
issues.
Daddy issues.
Comes with a box of
Excerpts
tissues.
from the Fatherly Podcast. Yes, exactly.
Okay, well, okay.
That's an amazing title,
So-
too. You found it.
Nailed it.
Next book. We're
reeling
ready.
you all
We'll
back
have you
in.
back for the next book.
So, Joshua David Stein, author of Can I Eat That? What's Cooking? And also the editor at large for Fatherly, and of course, the lovely Sarah Hill from Bookstr. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
See ya.
Next, we have Chris Vernale joining us. He's the founder of L Raven Productions, a production company that delivers a wide range of services, including video, photography, and editing.
All right, Chris is here to talk about his business and the importance of networking. He is joined by Nora Jost, an intern here at Bold TV. Chris, tell us, first of all, can I just say how impressed I am? Because I was checking out your work last night, and you're amazing. You are so talented. But we're going to focus. We want to get some real useful information from you because you've built your business a lot through networking.
Yes.
So talk to us about networking.
So when it comes to filmmaking, and what I do a lot is video production and film production, and not only like narrative work, but like corporate stuff. And it's that kind of creativity. You're not on an island. I mean, it requires relationships, and it requires the help of other people. I mean, I always say to myself that anything good that comes from our lives is due to the grace of others. So we can try and we can have a certain amount of talent, but to get to a certain level, it basically requires somebody else to say, hey, here's your chance. I'll give you a shot. Because you don't get that experience just in a vacuum.
So, Nora, speaking of which, you brought Chris. You're an intern here at Bold TV. Why did you pick Chris, and why did you pick this topic?
So I think a lot of millennials are really shy about networking. They're almost apologetic. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, I want to work with you. I don't have many credits because there's all this expectations about how much quality you have to have coming out of college before you can start networking with really important people. And I think it's really important that we start learning how to properly network. And when it comes to Chris, I actually worked with Chris through, I'm in a film program at my school, and he came and filmed a web series, and we've been in contact for 3 years now, and we've done several projects together. We have 2 that we're working on together right now, and a lot of people that I've met through Chris, and I think he's really taught me a lot about networking.
How has technology changed your ability to network? Because now you can do, I mean, do you have more appreciation maybe for when you meet someone in person? Does that become a better connection because you see the difference, or is it all the same?
It's actually, to me, it's almost gotten, it gets easier in a way and it gets harder in a way. It gets easier because you don't have to actually be face to face, and so it's easier to have these relationships that might lead somewhere and might not. I mean, because when you meet somebody face to face, you can actually get you get a better sense of who they are as a person. And again, like with marketing and networking, to me, it seems very cold and calculated. I mean, it's basically relationships. And especially in my business, like, you have to like that person. I mean, it's one thing to make a good video, but if they don't like you, then it doesn't matter, and it doesn't move anything forward.
And you have a lot of corporate clients, so that's very important to have them like you.
It's, because you're bridging that chasm between a technical prowess and artistic ability and that corporate mindset. So it's very left brain and right brain. So you need a logistical ability and a means. You need to know how to talk to people and know how to communicate properly and to get through a message, and then to technically make something look beautiful and do what the client wants.
So Chris Okonski says, "You legend." Yeah, he's a friend of yours. And Rodwell says, "You're killing the game, Nora." So you started this business on your own.
I did.
From the ground up. And now you're helping Nora. You help several other people. What is your advice for people who are just getting started out? Because it always feels like the odds are against you, but somehow you carved out a niche for yourself.
It's so, I mean, you find a need and you fill it. I mean, just like anybody might say, like as an entrepreneur or anything, business-wise, like that. I mean, I was finding that in the corporate world, like, people were having a hard time, like, they have a vision, they don't know how to execute it, or they know how to execute it, but they don't have that, the vision to take it on the back end. So there has to be that marriage somewhere, and basically I found myself being more of a middleman because I can communicate properly. I mean, I try to, I can also, I learned and appreciate pretty pictures and know how to.
Well, you have to. I mean, you can network all you want. If you don't have the talent to back up the job, it's all going to fall apart anyway.
Also, speaking on that, when I first got hired onto this web series, I was hired just as a production assistant, and I made myself useful by becoming Chris's assistant because I was interested in learning about camera. So I found a spot and made myself useful, and now look where we are 3 years later.
You have to be adaptable. I mean, it's something that you can't just. You need to. People. It's so easy for people to settle. It's so easy for people to get comfortable in what they do and stick with that, what's like comfortable and easy, and the key to this type of world is like you can't settle. You got to keep moving forward. You got to keep adapting. Things change constantly. Media changes constantly, and relationships dry up. Relationships move forward. Like, sometimes the people that move on to other things completely separate from your life, and not that you break that relationship, but you have to find new relationships and new ways to move
and sometimes somebody that maybe is not that important in your world, then you network with them, you become friends with them, and then they get a bigger job, and so you have to always, I think, you always be very kind and mindful towards everybody, no matter what. Even especially when you don't need anything from them. I think that's really one of the keys.
It's incredibly important.
Build that base.
Because what's the point of doing, if you don't enjoy what you do, if you can't work with people that you like being around, I mean, it's the point is kind of moot.
Well, Chris and Nora, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next guests are fun because they've brought a little something with them, Bobbi.
They brought something.
Yeah, Lara Crystal, the
Ooh.
co-founder of
I
Minibar
love
Delivery,
this.
a website that delivers wine, beer, and liquor in more than 35 cities in America.
All right, she is joined by Kristi Riordan. She is the Chief Operating Officer of the Flatiron School, which trains people in web and mobile development. Both of our guests are here to talk about women in tech. I love this topic, by the way. Ladies, what can we do to increase gender diversity in tech? This is getting right to the point.
Absolutely. Well, I'll Jump in. Good morning. At the Flatiron School, we spend a lot of our time thinking about this topic. Women don't just show up in equal numbers to men to learn how to do software engineering. So we focus a lot on awareness and access. With respect to awareness, women aren't aware of what kind of job opportunities there are in software engineering. So we partner with a lot of female affinity brands like Birchbox, who have a large reach to speak out to women about the kinds of careers that they can have. And we love having female tech entrepreneurs who can step forward and talk about what it's like to work in this field as well. And we also focus a lot on access. Women still have a pay gap. There's a wealth gap. They have more student debt than men.
Because they're more educated.
Because they're
Yes, which is the irony of the whole thing.
yes.
Exactly.
we want to get them the higher paying jobs like exist in software engineering. And so we need to give them this kind of education. And so we've spent a lot of our time focusing on scholarships, creating opportunity where women can come to places like Flatiron School and learn software engineering. We've created over 400 scholarships for $3 million for women, and that has helped us balance gender parity.
Wow.
So Lara, you're a female founder. You did it. You're a woman in tech.
I am, yes. And I think I've been lucky enough to be surrounded by other great women in tech. So before founding Minibar with my co-founder, who's also female, I worked at Rent the Runway, which was founded by 2 women as well.
The foundation
This
has
is
been a
Rent the
guest here.
Runway. I just have to say that now. This is Rent the Runway. Thank you.
Wonderful.
They were on a few weeks
Love
ago,
Rent the Runway.
so-
Love that. So I think what's happening in New York right now in general, which is great, is there is this great community of women in technology that are supporting each other and lifting each other up. And working to bring more women into that. So Rent the Runway was always very thoughtful in hiring women and elevating women to senior leadership positions, and still is even after I'm gone today. And at Minibar, we are aiming to do that as well. And it's just about bringing women into the funnel and continuing to maintain an environment that supports women and can nurture women throughout their careers. And I think that's really important for technology, because a lot of times things are moving so fast, people don't put in the infrastructure and the HR network that women need and that all people need really to be supported as they grow with a company. And so that's really been critical to how we view Minibar and how we viewed things at Rent the Runway as well.
So what are specific things that you, for example, as an entrepreneur can do to bring in more women and get them more interested in this? Are there specific programs? I mean, obviously, Flatiron School and so on, but what steps, because it wasn't happening. And I feel like we're in a moment where we're talking about it more. My stepdaughter, I'm so proud of, Ashley, if you're watching this, I call her a cybersecurity major. I know it's something like informatics, but I call it cybersecurity. But she's going to be a woman in tech. She's a junior in college now.
Wonderful.
And it's becoming much more mainstream. What is going on in this moment?
Yeah, I think for us and for all women, it's a really exciting time to be an entrepreneur and to bring more women into technology. And so it starts at, every stage. It's about not even before you even start hiring, it's about holding meetups, attending meetups, being an active member of the community to support women, taking those meetings when other female entrepreneurs or any entrepreneur really reaches out to you and wants to set up those meetings. So creating those informal ways for women to get involved. And then as you build your company, starting to put into place more of the formal processes that I mentioned before, and that Kristi's talked about, that we really try and do to nurture women throughout their careers. But to bring women into technology, it's really about the informal practices that you maintain as a woman or as a man, truthfully.
This is stuff that men have been doing forever, that women are really kind of being more proactive about now.
That's right. And I think we're seeing so many more women come forward and speak. I mean, you've got 2 women on your panel here this morning. That's something that in the tech industry, it wasn't happening that much 5 years ago, and it really wasn't happening 10 years ago. And I think it's important to be able to see someone that looks a little bit like you, that sounds a little bit like you, so you feel that you can have the confidence to go and pursue this career as well. Research has been done that shows that women have a greater confidence gap than men have. If you look at people who apply to jobs, women will want to have 100% of the requirements before they apply.
Oh, I apply to
would.
whatever. I'm just like,
I would go. Me too. I would wait, and I would go out. I would go get a degree, go get a CFP before I would check the boxes before I would apply to anything. I'd make sure I'm 100% qualified before I do.
Oh, I'm
and
like,
David's like, whatever.
yeah,
I can do
yeah,
anything.
I can do that.
Sure,
Yeah,
I'll learn
French,
it. I'll
sure.
Yes, it's true. Studies show this, and so we know this confidence gap exists for women in the tech industry. It's oftentimes called the imposter syndrome, where you feel that you're sitting in a room and you're an imposter and you don't actually belong. In computer science programs, CS 101, women will be maybe 2 students out of 20 or 30 students, and they just feel like they don't belong. They feel like they're an imposter. So we spend a lot of our time at Flatiron School focusing on that issue, addressing it head on. We have women-only study groups to draw women in and see that there are other women that look just like them and have learned from the beginning as well, and they can do it as well, and they build their confidence over time.
And it's not just women, it's diversity in general, because a lot of the tech sector is a monolith. There's certain populations, and I wouldn't even go as far as saying it's just ethnicity, it's everything. It's largely urban, it's largely a certain segment of society. Given that so much wealth is coming out of the tech sector, how do we expand our net to catch more people from all demographics?
That's absolutely right. In fact, I would go back to the same thing that I said about women, focusing on awareness and access. We have to reach out to rural areas. In fact, we just did a scholarship with Stack Exchange probably 6 months ago, where they said, listen, a lot of our demographic is really urban centric, and we want to bring more developers into rural areas. So we actually partnered with them to reach out to rural communities to activate more people to learn this kind of education and take jobs, because the jobs are everywhere. They're as much in the rural areas as they are in the urban areas.
So,
And we're talking about tech, obviously, but as a woman that represents not only tech but also the alcohol community, is another
a much-loved community.
A much-loved community, but also another one that's very underrepresented for women.
Yes.
And so it's been interesting to see those two industries come together, and myself and my co-founder attempting to really bridge the gap and enter the room as strong female forces. And try and bring some light to that subject.
When you go to raise money in the VC community, do they have stereotypes that you have to battle? I mean, even down to even the products that you're going to carry.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of studies that just show that people look to pattern recognition when they invest. And so the fact that there just has been historically so many fewer female founders has definitely made it more difficult for women generally to fundraise and attract attention, and especially in an industry like alcohol where there aren't a lot of women there. And women and men, when you shop for alcohol, the shopping experience is very different. A lot of men like liquor stores. A lot of women find liquor stores very overwhelming or intimidating, and they're very unfriendly places. So our website and app has been a great place for women and men, but especially for women who don't like the shopping experience that they get.
And you have great branding and great gifting for the holiday season.
Yes.
I was checking it out last night. Very nice, pretty gift boxes if you want to send people a nice gift
We
from
do, and
Minibar delivery.
And today we're giving back $1 to the United Way of Wine Country if you shop this week for
Giving
wine.
Tuesday.
So it's a wonderful day, Giving Tuesday, to go on Minibar delivery and shop.
Ms. Crystal, you're such an entrepreneur. I knew you would I didn't have to bring up Minibar delivery because she was going to weave it into the conversation. It's like, speaking of diversity, the alcohol community. That's what it takes to be an entrepreneur, and you have what it takes,
Well,
evidently.
Congratulations on all your success.
Thanks so much.
And to you too.
Kristi, thank you so much for joining us. Absolutely. Up next, we welcome an entrepreneur who's on a mission to outfit women for success with her new luxury women's wear brand, Ameliora.
Adrienne, am I saying this name right? Adrienne Kronovet. Adrienne, okay. Kronovet is here to talk about her entrepreneurial journey, give us a sneak peek of her soon-to-be-released collection. I'm very tongue-tied suddenly. And give us some suggestions for dressing for your dream interview or big meeting or whatever. I have to tell you, so I was able to go on you can tell I was doing a lot of homework last night, but I checked out this. I'm obsessed with a Carmen jacket.
Oh my
Gorgeous.
gosh, thank you so
gorgeous.
much.
It's this beautiful jacket with like red trim. It's like a mandarin collar with this awesome red trim, and so it's it's a very conservative blazer, but with a little like happiness in there. It's got a little kick in there, a little style, but definitely you can wear it anywhere to any interview. but yet it's got that little secret, those little finishing touches that really make it special.
Yes.
So congratulations on being so talented in your amazing design.
Well, thank you so much. I think the Carmen jacket is definitely one of my favorite pieces. As you said, it has a beautiful mandarin collar, and it also is fully lined in silk. So not only do you have that strip of red silk around the collar, but you also have a full lining of red silk for that added pizzazz. So when, you turn a little bit, like with my sleeve, you can see you get this little bit of red just for that added dazzle. And when you're wearing it, you're draped in silk, and it just feels so, so incredible. And it feels really empowering, which was our mission. And there it is.
Yes. Oh, there they got it. That's so awesome. You're like the anti-fast fashion. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I feel like it's like a breath of fresh air because there's so much quantity of clothing that's maybe not always that well made. This stuff is really well made. And so you tell us how you even got the motivation to do this, because it's not easy to do such high quality work. I mean, to do this in a way that will be profitable. I assume you intend, you're a startup still, but
Right.
That's not easy. How did you motivate?
So when I started Ameliora, I was kind of guided by this question of how can we help women be successful? So having that mission and that principle, we've based everything around that. And in order to do that, we take the highest quality of fabrics. Everything we do is made in this beautiful Italian fabric, lined with a combination of red silk. We take that, we also use small batch principled construction methods, and we make everything here in the United States. So everything we do is really focused on helping women be successful. Though we're technically in the clothing business, we really see ourselves more so in the success business. Everything we do is focused on how can we help women be successful.
So, Adrienne, your LinkedIn is really impressive. So one of the things I do
you so
before all the
much.
guests
I was
come
looking at the
on-
clothing. He was looking at the LinkedIn, right? Do you see the difference going on here?
They're gonna come on.
Yeah, I know,
It's a
I know,
business
I know.
show. I have to see
And I was
what
watching the
they're
clothing.
doing.
Okay.
Oh my word! You've worn a lot of hats. How old are you? Like 45?
Yes. Yes, great skincare. No, I've been really fortunate to have such an incredible journey that's really impacted me and really kind of led me to creating Ameliora, because in all these different hats I've worn, I've really seen the power of empowerment. And through Ameliora, you can kind of trace my own journey. Every garment is named after a female mentor of mine that I had at one of these opportunities. So for example, the Carmen jacket is named for this incredible neuroscientist, Carmen Simon, who's guided me. Right now, I'm wearing the Carla dress, and Carla was my mentor at my first job. And she took me under her wing and guided me and encouraged me. So not only are we supporting women through our designs, but I'm able to thank those who have supported and encouraged me, and it's been really incredible.
Wow.
Tell us more about how you're going to grow the line, because this is like a capsule line right now.
Yes, absolutely. So we're launching with a capsule collection, which is 2 jackets, 2
Oh, what's a capsule?
Yes.
Sorry.
I know exactly what that is.
What's a capsule?
Explain to David.
Yeah, so a capsule collection is something in your closet that you can wear with anything. They're those go-to pieces that you keep. You have a go-to jacket that you can dress up, you can dress down. Those are pieces that you can always turn to and go with everything. And that was the most important thing for us. We wanted to have pieces that could really be evergreen, that would go with anything. You could wear it all the time, with jeans, with a jacket, with a dress, anything. So our capsule collection, we're starting with the 2 jackets, 2 dresses, 2 skirts, a pair of leggings, and a pair of pants. And from there, the sky's the limit. We are focused on our customers and helping them be successful. And we're looking at shirts, silk tops. We'd really love to grow and become a household brand.
The audience says that's an awesome way to name a product line.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yay.
much.
And tell me, how are you going to use, are you going to use social media? What's your plans to keep getting the word out, besides, of course, being on Bold?
Of course, being on
Being on Bold, of course. But
Yes.
what else?
So definitely we're working with social media. I was actually chatting with Melonie out in the green room, who was giving me her best tips for Instagram.
She's a good one to ask.
She's a good one now.
Yes,
So I'm
definitely.
excited to continue that conversation. But definitely grow with social media. We've seen word of mouth specifically. Like once you try on the clothes, you just feel so incredible. And people have been telling their friends, which has really helped us grow.
So it's soft.
Sorry.
It feels real. You feel
Yes.
like not to quote George Costanza, you feel like you're draped in velvet, huh?
Absolutely. You feel like, and especially so this Italian fabric, it's a beautiful combination of Lycra and microfiber. So it's super stretchy. It moves really well. It breathes. It feels incredibly light. And then the silk just feels so soft against your body. It really is unlike anything else on the market.
Cool.
So how important is it to have a mentor when starting your own business? Audience.
And name your clothing after them.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I think it is so important to have mentors, to have people to guide you, to give you advice, to help you. It's nice to have such a good feedback loop. And I know I am 100% where I am because of those who have encouraged me and really told me that I could do it and helped me believe in myself. And it's so important to have those people in your life and then in turn be those for other people.
This young lady has the charisma of a 50-year-old.
She does. And did you notice the most important thing she said was at the end where she said, be there for other people. So she's had mentors and she's already being a mentor and thinking forward about giving back, which I think is really
We're
great.
lucky you're not in broadcasting. She might take my job. She sounds so nice. How old are you?
I'm 22.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
Did you go to school? Like, how did this happen?
I did.
Oh my God. It's like
She's
the Doogie
Benjamin
Howser.
Button
I'm like, oh my
going
God.
backwards, yeah.
I just graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
Oh, beautiful place.
Huge Tar Heel fan. So if anyone wants
course.
to talk basketball, I'm always happy to. But I really had this idea, during my senior year, and I graduated and I moved up here in May, and here we are.
Wow. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing.
awesome.
An inspiration for all of us. I feel like I need
Amazing.
to add another side hustle to my repertoire. Just to
Yeah,
keep
you
up
only
with
have like
Adrienne.
4 jobs.
Yeah,
anyway.
whatever. Yeah, Still can't keep up with Adrienne.
No, no one can.
Well, thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you so much
Great,
for
thank
having
you.
me.
Absolutely. So our final guest is Shai Reshef. He's the president of the University of the People, the world's first nonprofit, tuition-free accredited U.S. online university. He has more than 25 years of experience in the international education market.
Awesome. University of the People is dedicated to opening access to higher education grounded in the belief that knowledge is a key ingredient for world peace. They provide access to higher education to qualified individuals, regardless of financial, political, geographical, or societal constraints. Welcome. Tell us more. University of the People.
You said it all. We are, as you said, a non-profit tuition-free online university for kids who graduate high school but cannot afford going to college. And there are hundreds of millions of students who cannot afford it, either because of financial reasons. We know the situation in the US, the price of higher education became impossible for many. There are places in the world where students cannot afford it because of lack of seats. There aren't enough universities. There are women in some cultures that are prevented from higher education. Refugees for political reasons. So for all these people, we use the internet to bring quality higher education to them.
So where are your students? They're all over the world, but what are some notable countries that rank up there?
Well, our biggest country is the US. So
Really?
we started in
Interesting.
2009. In 2014, we got our initial accreditation. By now we have, and at that time we had 500 active students. Now we have over 10,000 students. Half of them are from the US. US mean people who either undocumented would be one example, first generation students, and many of them are people who started in other colleges, couldn't afford it because of the tuition, because of the debt, and they said they can't continue. They drop and come to us. So half of them are from the US, the rest are coming from 200 countries and territories, every single place in the world, including some that I personally don't know. And I guess you as well. So yeah, everywhere.
So how did this start, and how do you distinguish yourself from, there's so many, I guess they're called MOOCs, mass online courses. How do you distinguish yourself from that? Because it seems like the space is very crowded with a lot of online content towards learning, but you're very different.
We are very different because we are a university. So you need to be accepted. We open the doors wide. Anyone can have the opportunity to start with us, but they have to pass 2 courses in order to be considered students and continue with us. So they take 2 courses, they pass them, they get credit for them and continue with us. And then they have to take 40 courses, follow the curriculum, and eventually they get a full degree. So we are different both in terms of giving a degree at the end, accredited degree, both in terms of personalized attention. We don't put students in classes of 100,000, but in classes of 20 students. Every 20 students has an instructor. So it's a very personalized experience with a full accredited degree at the end.
So how do you manage the tuition-free part? You're a nonprofit. How does the whole machine work?
Right. So 2 things. First of all, we are tuition-free. We are not free. We expect the students, after they take the courses for free, to pay $100 per each end of course assessment. So it ends up to be $4,000 for a full BA, which is, very
Very
That's
reasonable.
still
yeah.
pretty affordable.
Yeah, but our ability to be that inexpensive is because we use everything that is free on the net. Open source technology, open educational resources.
So no textbooks or anything like that?
We have textbooks, but they are open educational resources, meaning we don't send the students to buy the textbooks, they are free. And the most important thing is our volunteers. We heavily rely on volunteers. Our President's Council, chaired by John Sexton, the president of NYU, include presidents, chancellors, and vice chancellors from Columbia.
Who are all
University.
volunteers?
So
All
you have a lot of
volunteers.
partnerships.
Columbia, Berkeley, Oxford, Duke, the best universities of the world, the presidents volunteer with us. Our provost and vice provost, volunteers from Columbia. Our deans are from NYU and Princeton, volunteers. All of our instructors are come to us as volunteers.
Wow.
We have 6,000 volunteering professors who came on board to help our students because they just believe that what we do needs to be done, and they want to help us accomplish this mission.
And how long have you been in business?
8
to do-
years. So we
That's an amazing accomplishment to have this much buy-in from the community, from the educational community in just 8 years. How did you do that? We had a guest on earlier talking about networking. Do you just know all these people? Because it's just 8 years is like nothing to put this together.
Well, first of all, thank you. But, actually they came to us. I announced the university in 2009. The next day, the New York Times wrote a page about it. The next day, we already had hundreds of emails by professors saying, this is dream come true. We want to help it happen. And they came on board to help us make it happen. And, everything that we do is by volunteers, and it's a word of mouth. The same goes to students. We hardly advertise. We don't have the budget. So students hear about us from the media, word of mouth, and that's how it happened. Yeah.
Do you have any touching stories of a student in a war-torn area, a refugee, or someone who's just in a really remote area that really benefited from being a student at University of the People?
Sure. We took over 1,000 refugees. Over 600 of them are Syrian. We took more Syrian refugees than any university in the world. Half of them are studying in Syria itself.
Still there
Yeah,
now.
they're there and but they're able to get service and they're studying
Exactly.
online. That's amazing.
One of them is in Aleppo. She had to leave her house 3 times because of the shelling. She came back. She is in her house without electricity, without running water. Every other day she go to a shop next to her house to charge her laptop and her cell phone, come back home, using the cell phone as a hotspot to have internet in her laptop and studying with a candlelight.
You bring up an interesting point. We just did a segment on women in technology. In many countries, in different parts of the world, women are not really allowed or able to educate themselves. Do you find that that's a big market for you, these women that otherwise would not have these resources because of cultural barriers?
It is, and we have a lot of women in Muslim countries, in some Muslim countries, who study at home because, you can stay at home, you're with your laptop,
Right.
and you get the degree. So, yeah, it is a market. There are some, we have a student who became a mother, and then she was sent away from the university because they said the university is not a place for mothers. She's with us. So we have a lot of students, and we think that, the way that we deliver our degree, besides being high quality, it's also a way to reach those people who are prevented from attending universities. And yes, this is a big mark.
So how do you deal with the language barrier? You're only in English, correct?
We are only in English.
So how do you do that around the world?
Well, so first of all, it is true that that's the major barriers. If you can't speak English, moreover, if you come from a country that is not a native English-speaking country, we ask you to take an English course, which helps you improve somewhat your English, but more than that, by the end of it, the exit exam prove to us that you have the right English skills. If not, we send you back, say, improve your English and come back to us. But we are in English. It's the biggest market. We believe that, our pedagogy is putting together students from 20 countries every time they take a class. So we believe that this interaction is extremely important in opening students' mind, making them part of the global world. But you need to speak English, and we don't offer it in any other language. We believe that everyone should speak English.
Part of the curriculum,
Yeah.
basically. Part of it is that you learn English if you don't already, as part of the plan to succeed globally in what's really a global business atmosphere.
Yeah.
So you won't, an audience question, you won't be expanding into any other languages. You're sticking to English.
Well, if we have the resources, we'll expand into Arabic because we want to create a university for the Syrian refugees. There are 200,000 of them who were left out of universities, and we have other resources. We will expand to other languages, but it's a major undertaking. Yeah, right now we are only in English, not other languages at the near future.
And what have your graduates gone on to do? Because now you have a few graduates out in the real world,
exciting.
We
right?
have hundreds of graduates. Some of them work with IBM, Apple, Google, Amazon, World Bank. So actually, they work in amazing places. You know, we have a partnership with Berkeley, whereas our associate degree graduate after 2 years can transfer to Berkeley to complete their degree. The same with NYU, they can transfer to NYU. The same with Edinburgh, where our associate degree can transfer. So we have the quality that is needed for our graduate, and as such, they are perceived very well, accepted very well by the job market, and we are very proud of them.
I love the way his face lights up when he talks
I
about it.
know,
It's
he
such-
likes what he
you
does. Yeah,
can
he
tell
did
it's
the
so
right
special
job.
to you.
Well,
Congratulations on all of it.
Thank you so much.
Shai, Reshef, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks again.
And that's all for today's show. I'd like to send out a special thanks to our partners, GenFKD, Bold TV, and Bookstr for helping us make this show a reality week after week. Also, a very warm thanks to my
Thank you
esteemed
for having me.
co-anchor.
This was so awesome.
It's so nice having you around. I don't have to worry about the next question because she is just a question
Are you
factory.
saying I'm hogging the airtime? Is that
No,
what you're saying?
no.
Oh my goodness.
Super respectful of my time and with great questions.
Thank you,
So
David.
thank
Thank
you
you for
so
having
much.
me.
We'll have you back anytime you want. And of course, don't miss our Friday show with some familiar faces. You know, Clay Aiken, runner-up American Idol a long time ago, and Carrie Sheffield right here on Facebook Live.
We love Carrie.
Yeah,
We love Clay too.
Yeah,
Love
we love
Carrie.
them both. And Bold Business will be back next Tuesday at 9 a.m. So we'll see you then.